as we come here, one of our most important things, we want to gain the knowledge of what it is of economics and have a greater understanding. That's most important. We can put it to work. Not only can we help ourselves, help others, and even help generations to come. Lord, we thank you for Alan and for him being willing to come and give of himself, give of his time, and Lord, to pour in our lives. And thank you for all those who are here who have some knowledge, and all of us able to share the things that we know. And as we work with them, Lord, we'll be blessed through the teaching, through the sharing, and through the doing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I'll go get this board clean right now. But you can start out. Yeah.
So tonight, we have a 2-for-1. I will be taking the first part.
All right.
And then we have in our midst one of the great experts in the insurance business, who's going to tell us about the importance of insurance and how it's part of our portfolio, how it is a part of our plans. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is how many people do you have heard about this? Donald Trump right now is supporting and trying to get passed what he calls his big beautiful bill.
If he's trying to pass it, it ain't good for us.
What's that, Tony?
If he's trying to pass it, it's not good for us.
It's not good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what this is part of is that it is establishing the budget of the federal government.
Right.
And what's a budget? Anybody?
Budget is usually a written statement of usually what it costs for you to either live, manage your monthly, weekly, whatever, or daily financial obligations.
And Pastor Bowie, who has a budget?
Who does the budget?
Who has a budget?
Well, what depends on what you're talking about. It can be individual budgets.
He says, Jennifer says, everybody has a budget.
Which
Which is true. So
Right.
Pastor Bowie says there oftentimes could be written, but it also could be just something that's in your head.
Yeah.
So we all have a budget because every time we buy something, we say to ourselves, do I have the money to get it? Should I get it? And so in figuring out the budget, what do you take a look at?
Your liabilities.
Your liabilities, or let's say, your expenses, okay? You take a look at your expenses. And then you also take a look at your
Income flow.
income. And if you take the income and reduce and take away from that your expenses, that's the money that when we take, you have discretionary income. It's within your discretion how you spend that. Okay, so not only do we as individuals have budgets, but who else has budgets?
The government.
The government has one, okay?
Companies.
What's that? Corporations have budgets.
Churches.
Churches have budgets. I don't know how anybody can read this,
Cities and municipalities.
but everybody has a budget. Everybody has a budget, whether you know it or not. Because when you're going out to lunch, you're figuring out how much money do I have and how much money can I spend. So right now, in Washington DC, they are working out the budget for the next year for the federal government. Okay, so how, where does the government get its money?
Taxes.
Taxes. Government gets dollars for taxes, where else?
From different entities that it runs, such as post office, DMV,
Okay,
Bonds.
yeah, police, you know, you get, yeah. Yeah.
income from various governmental entities,
Mhm.
okay? And where else does it get money? So, let me ask you this.
Legally or illegally?
I mean, part of it, and that's really right, is that it gets money from other sources as well. To the extent that the police arrest somebody and the person is fined, that money from the fine comes to the government.
Right.
That's part of the income, so there's all kinds of them. So if, in fact, you've got a budget and you run short for that month, what could you do?
Borrow.
Borrow, absolutely. So that's what we're gonna take a look at right now, is that the government is figuring out how much taxes it's gonna take in, how much it gets from other entities, and it's gonna determine its expenses. And if it doesn't have enough money coming in to cover its expenses, then one of the things it's gonna do is it's gonna borrow money, or what else can the government do to increase the amount coming in?
Sell bonds.
They can sell bonds, which is the IOUs, but also we can raise
Taxes.
taxes, okay? And at the same time, in order to save money, if it has what it spends on, government spends on government services.
Mhm.
Very expensive.
So what kind of thing, when we think about government services, what do we think about?
Social Security,
Social Security, yeah,
Medicare,
Medicare, Medicaid, you know, it can be, on,
How about fees, for different things like passports?
yeah, that's the money coming. Right now, we're talking about expenses.
Mhm.
So if it is running short of money, the government can increase taxes to increase the money coming in. And it can also reduce the government services. So that's what's going on right now in Washington. So if I told you that Mr. A, Mr. Adams, is the name,
Mhm.
has $1,000 worth of debt. And Mr. Jones has $100,000 of debt. Who's in a better financial situation?
Repeat that question. With the less debt.
Right?
One with the less debt.
Maybe not.
maybe
Maybe
not.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Because
It
Right.
depends on the income.
So hold on, so you've been dealing with all these mortgages.
Yeah.
You're gonna take a look at how much debt the person wants the mortgage at, right? But you're gonna take a look at that and his debt and compare it to
Income.
his income. So maybe you got way more debt than somebody else, but your income
Okay.
may be higher.
Right,
So you just can't take a look at the debt,
right, right.
okay? So the United States government has been, for many years now, under both political parties, been borrowing money
Constantly.
constantly. And the way that they generally do that is by, as Pastor Bowie said, is that they sell bonds, okay, which we know are IOUs. And so the government, when the government borrows money and you essentially buy one of these bonds, is it a pretty safe investment?
Yes,
And why is that?
because the government guarantees
The
that
government-
money will.
And the government's not gonna go away.
Right.
You know, we hope not, we doubt it, but things change all the time. Okay, and at the same time, is that, so when you have somebody that wants to come to you and, and says, this is how much I want, you're gonna do an investigation, what are you gonna investigate?
Income,
Yeah.
income, yeah. If that's income credit, yeah, and assets.
Right, so if the person owns several homes already,
Mhm.
that person who owns several homes already is probably going to be a better and safer bet to loan to than somebody that doesn't have much income or doesn't have much kind of assets. Right?
Maybe.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing, you would- that's the kind of
That's a
thing,
way, yeah.
that's the kind of things that you would take a look at.
Right.
So, so if somebody came to you that didn't have much assets and much income, are they gonna have to pay a higher or lower interest rate than somebody who's got a lot of assets and a lot of income?
The interest rate you-
They have to pay more.
You have to do with credit. Doesn't have to do with assets.
But when you take a look at it, one of the things that's on the credit report is gonna be the person's income, whether they paid in the past.
That's credit.
But generally, somebody who has better financial report,
Credit.
credit number, is that they are, if a person's got a high credit number, meaning he's got good credit,
Mhm.
is that person gonna have,
A better,
right?
yeah, better.
A lower interest rate, because that person is a safer bet. So right now is that the government is one of the safest investments you can make. And in terms of lending money to the government, to begin with, they got printing presses and they can print money.
Right.
So over time, the government has been borrowing a lot of money in the trillions of dollars, and I'll talk about that.
Mhm.
But at the same time that the government has been borrowing these trillions of dollars, in the last many years, the economy in the United States has been getting better or getting worse? Over a number of years.
Better.
So that's what, it's getting better to the extent that it has more money, and we're a richer country than we were 20 years ago. Okay, so right now, if people want to get a safe investment, they'll buy government bonds. Okay, now,
Question, Al, do they secure bonds with, gold? I mean, how does gold come into play?
they used to be under the gold standard, we used to back it, and we used to have the gold, it was set at a certain price, and it was all in Fort Knox in the ground. But now, essentially, when people are lending money to the government, they lend it because the United States government, people have a faith in it.
Mhm.
That as opposed to if they're gonna lend it to some other company. For example, Brazil right now, financial difficulty.
Mhm.
So people are less likely to lend money to Brazil, and if they lend money to Brazil, are they gonna expect a higher or a lower interest rate? Higher, because it's more chancy. So, at this point, the President Trump has a plan, a budget, and he needs to get it approved by Congress. So, So with regard to taxes, what did President Trump say when he was running?
He was gonna lower that.
He was gonna lower taxes.
But he didn't specify for whom.
Was that?
He did not specify for whom.
No, that's really, I mean, that's kind of what it works for.
Yeah.
You know, so he also said that he was gonna cut government services to save money. And he actually made some plans about what he was gonna cut. So, what was he gonna cut? Especially Medicare and Medicaid, which a huge amount of money, obviously above its biggest expenses, aside from Social Security, which has its own fund, that's separate. But government, has its biggest expenses other than Social Security
Medicare.
are Medicare and Medicaid.
Yep.
And people really depend on that, and especially people of lower income,
Mhm.
okay? Another thing that's in play right now is SNAP funds.
Yep.
Which used to be called.
Welfare.
What?
Welfare, food stamps.
Now, food stamps, now called SNAP. So Trump wants to reduce the money that's paid out for SNAP. Okay? So politically, this is a huge issue. And right now, there was a vote today in the House of Representatives. And the House of Representatives has, what, 435 members?
It's 315 for the Congress and 100 for senators.
And how many are in the Senate?
100.
100 in the Senate. And the House of Representatives is controlled by the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, both houses are controlled by the
Both houses,
Republicans.
the Senate and the House of Representatives, is controlled by the Republicans. And is it close between the two parties? Or is
Yes,
there a big difference
It's close.
in terms of the numbers?
it's close.
So anything that comes up to a vote, it becomes very chancy is what's gonna happen.
Most cases,
What?
the Republicans will win.
Well, they will win, so the vote that they just had, I guess yesterday in the House of Representatives, the Republicans won 214 to 212. What?
One vote, it was one vote.
Yeah.
215 to 214.
215, 214, very close.
Yeah.
And all of the people that voted against it were
Democrats.
Democrats. Because Trump opposed it. And all the people that voted in favor of it were Republicans. And right now, for example, if you're a Republican and you're in a district that's very close in terms of voting between Democrats and Republicans, and you were a Republican and you had known that there's a lot of older people in your district, there's a lot of pressure for you to not cut welfare, Medicaid, Medicare. And so what's going on, there's a lot of deal making going on. And you know, we have the House of Representatives about to vote again in about a year and a half. And how they vote on these things are very. So, the United States has been running a deficit, meaning in terms of the amount of money, it's spending more money than it's bringing in through taxes. So it's doing a lot of borrowing. At the same time, the United States economy is getting stronger virtually every year. And because inflation was pretty much under control under the Biden administration, is that it was, if inflation, which is things getting more expensive, if you want to borrow something and the economy is running well, is that the interest rates will be higher or lower?
Lower.
It'll be lower. If the country is doing well, and people take a look at it. It's just like if somebody comes in and shows you their credit report, it shows that they're doing well, and you can give them a better deal. Well, right now, because of inflation, partly because of the tariffs, we don't need to go into all the parts of that right now, but up until the last year or so, because interest rates were low, that the United States have to pay more or less interest if inflation is low.
Had to pay less,
What?
had to pay less.
Yeah, they have to pay less. Right now, inflation, although Trump said he was gonna end inflation, it hasn't happened. Inflation is going up, interest rates are going up, and therefore it's more expensive for the government to borrow money right now. So, part of the question that economists are taking a look at is, does the, is there some point that it's getting too dangerous in terms of how much money we borrow? The
Yes,
United States government.
Absolutely.
And that's the question. Right now, is that most economists will say that the economy is so strong that it will support the borrowing we're doing. But under the new plan, that it's gonna add over the next 10 years, $1 billion in debt.
To the already 37 plus that we have right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, so what Trump wants to do is he wants to cut expenses. He also promised to cut taxes. So whose taxes is he cutting?
wealthy.
The rich people. And in fact, his plan is going to increase taxes for poor people,
Yes, the table shows that as well.
right? And at the same time that he is cutting taxes for the wealthy and increasing them for poor people, this makes it difficult for Republicans in the House of Representatives to vote for that plan. And the real question is, how many Republicans are willing to stand up to Trump and say, no, I'm not gonna do it? And the answer is very few. There were, I think, 2 Republicans that voted no and 2 Republicans who didn't vote at all. And do you think that they are in very safe districts? Are they likely to get voted out of office?
Yes.
Well, it depends.
But
Depends
the thing
on-
is, they have a lot more freedom, right?
Right.
Because they are in districts that are very conservative and support Trump and support reducing these programs. So, as of today, the House passed the Trump's bill.
Proposal.
It's still gonna have to go to the Senate, and there's still gonna be a lot of negotiations. But in the long run, it's exposing something that we already knew, is that Trump is looking out for the wealthy people and not for the people who aren't wealthy. And I think that, you know, we all know people, my friend Brad who came in here and whose business is really taking a bad hit because of the tariffs. And he still supports Trump.
That's the point.
Yeah, and there are people in this community who voted for Trump, who didn't expect that this was gonna be the result. So people running for election now are Republicans, and the Democrats are making a big deal of it. So, I mean, figuring out this and putting it all together was tough, because it's moving so quickly. And the articles that I've been getting this information from, you know, they're changing all the time. So let me just take a look at my notes here. So I think, so if Trump's plan goes ahead, it's gonna increase our deficit, meaning the amount of money we owe, by $3 trillion over the next 10 years.
Mhm.
And the federal, so usually the government will go into debt. For example, in World War II, did the United States government's debt, its deficit increase or decrease?
An increase.
It increased because it was a
War.
crisis situation. So we didn't have any choice.
Mhm.
So they spent a lot of money for weapons and everything.
Mhm.
Right now, we are making choices that aren't necessary. And at some point, we don't know exactly what that point is, and economists disagree, is that it's gonna be really dangerous if the deficit increases too much.
Right.
And, you know, if in fact we needed to, that we had, when we had a recession in the United States, the government went had a greater deficit
Mhm.
because it was wanting to spend its way out of the recession by getting more money out into the economy. By the government spending more money, it was going to make the economy go faster, stronger, or weaker.
They intended for it to go faster. It's
Yeah,
gone.
they intended it to go faster. It overheated some. But that's the risk that they took, because at that point, they wanted to make sure that we could get out of that recession. I
Mhm.
mean, right now, the choices that we made are not choices that need to be made. So this is what Trump wants to increase spending up. Okay, he wants to, increase military spending.
Mhm. As a veteran, I can tell you we spent enough on that already.
Well, there are very powerful economic forces in the United States, which includes people in the defense industry.
Yeah, they got fantastic lobbyists.
They got fantastic lobbyists, and many people inside the government. I mean, they go back and forth between
Mhm.
the government service and private service.
Mhm.
And so they have a lot of power. They want more money spent on the military. Okay? One of the things that he wants to increase is immigration enforcement. So he is asking the Congress to give them more money for military spending and for immigration enforcement. In order to get that money, he wants to
He wants to use the military as a part of the force in that fight.
I mean, one of the things he's doing is that he wants to make up for that money that he takes from the military, he wants to increase the taxes. Then, right now, and he wants to cut services. And so the big services that he wants to cut are Medicare, is that, Medicaid, and you know, in California, Medicaid is called Medi-Cal. Okay, he wants to increase, reduce, money for SNAP,
Mhm.
and
Veterans benefits.
veterans, I'm not sure
Mhm.
if he wants to increase or decrease.
He wants to decrease it.
Okay.
He's speaking out of both sides of his
Right now,
neck.
I mean,
He's speaking out of both sides of his neck.
Yeah.
He's telling the military that he's not going to impact them. But what he's doing is
Impacting it.
impacting them and looking to cut services. See, it's the preacher that tells the congregation one thing and does another. That's what's going on with him. Yeah. And unfortunately, people believe him. They're believing what he says. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
and there's a lot of people in this community who's gonna be affected by the reductions in Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP,
Mhm.
people who rely on that sort of stuff. So I mean, part of it, and the other part is that Trump won the white working class voters in the last election. They're gonna suffer too.
They're already suffering, big
And
time.
one of the things that we see, when he's cutting all the services and the National Institute of Health, which helps people in terms of diseases, he's been cutting money in
Right.
there. So he's been cutting all kinds of programs, cutting education, getting rid of the Department of Education.
Mhm. I
So
like this.
if Trump wants to borrow money by selling bonds, who's he gonna sell these bonds to?
Well,
Historically, the largest group acquiring US bonds are foreign countries that want us, in part because they know that the United States has got the strongest economy in the world, and that's the safest place for them to put their money.
Mhm. Here it comes.
But I'll say, if the people who are supporting the government is losing, how can it work?
That's the question, and that's the question with the members of the House of Representatives who are Republicans. They know that a lot of the things they're voting for, they're afraid to vote against Trump. But they know it doesn't make sense.
but with Trump recently, there has been a lack of confidence of foreign nations in the United States now. And because of many of his actions, so although traditionally, that is what has been, we don't know whether they're going to do that now, because many of them have spoken out and said they don't have confidence in America no more.
And let me ask you, so about those countries, where do they get their money so that they can then lend it to the United States?
Well, many times they will probably get it from their citizens as well.
Or they get it from selling goods to the United States,
Pretty much.
the largest consumer in the world. And so many of these countries around the world are being able to make money and then lend it to the United States because they've had active trade with the United States. So Jackie, just in terms of not making sense, at the same time that Trump wants to borrow money from these countries and that they have it, and that money is coming from sales to the United States.
That wants to put tariffs
He's making
on.
it more lucrative for countries to sell to us, or less lucrative.
Far more.
He's made it less.
By raising the tariff,
He's made it less.
he made it less.
Mhm.
So these countries don't have the money to then lend to the United States. So, and that's why, I mean, trying to figure this all out is obviously very difficult, and where it's gonna go.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So because they no longer are, or maybe no longer is too severe, maybe because they don't have enough funds to be able to lend to the United States, and it forces us to get our house in order for sure. But with the deficit constantly being increased, you have a situation with the deficit constantly being increased, and a lot of the debt that we owe to these countries basically is like them owning the United States. And at some point, the reason why the deficit is so dangerous is because at some point, we're going to owe more than the country, particularly we might be financially worth. And we might not be economically strong enough to be able to recover from such a deficit.
And most economists say that right now, we have to be very careful and very suspicious and suspect about the deficit going up.
Mm-hmm.
They say that at some point, and economists disagree, there's gonna be a tipping point. That the deficit is gonna grow so great. it's gonna threaten the economy of the United States. And
Facts.
the economy of the United States is threatened. It threatens the economy of the world. So this is going on right now. These votes are happening yesterday, today, they were in committee, and now it's been passed out. Now it's gonna go to the Senate. But they're making decisions about what to do about this stuff. And personally, I don't have much confidence in the people who are making the decisions.
Right.
I mean, in large part, because anything Trump says, they're scared to death of voting against him, because if they vote against him, what's likely to happen? He's gonna get somebody. to vote against him.
Retribution. Yeah.
And he's so powerful, and despite the fact that he's not as supported as he had been previously, he still has a tremendous amount of power over the Republican voters. Yeah.
But also what has happened is that because of his bad decisions, many of these Republicans, they are new Republicans who have won from moderate states, moderate districts. They're not as concerned about Trump in that same way, because many of them were not elected because of Trump, but they were elected by other, which were truly conservative Republicans. And so that's something that Trump is fighting against, so we have a break in all the parties, because and that's where you have these Republicans who are stepping out because they're not MAGA. Because basically what we don't have really a Democratic, in my opinion, true Democratic or true Republican anymore.
Yeah.
What you do have is true MAGA. Now, those people are gonna stick with Trump no matter what. But go ahead, yes.
It doesn't even have to be Vegas, but just for example, there's a congressman there's a Republican congressman from Arizona. When under Biden, they passed the Reduced Inflation Act. And it had a whole bunch of stuff in it. And one of the things is it had plenty of money for electric vehicles. Something that Democrats tend to like more than Republicans, and at that point, the Democrats control the House. So there's a guy who's in Arizona, and in his district, a business grew up to make more electric vehicles. And it's been very popular and doing very well, and has hired a whole bunch of people. So now he has to make a choice. Am I gonna support Trump on this? Or am I gonna support electric vehicles because they're making them in my district? And individual Republicans have these same questions. If they happen to be in a district where people are older, who are more concerned about Medicare, and Medicaid, Medi-Cal, and SNAP, is that they are more likely to not want to vote for Trump on it. On the other hand, if they are coming from a district which people are younger or are affluent and have money and aren't as concerned about it, then they're gonna make a difference. So there's a whole bunch of issues here now, that there are Republicans on both sides of the issue who have said, in just one case, if you don't continue to fund electric vehicles, I'm gonna have to vote against this bill. And there are other Republicans that say, if you continue to fund electric vehicles, we think that's a waste of money. And if you're gonna continue to do it, we're gonna vote against it. So right now, the Republicans have been able to hold together because of Trump's power. But there's still gonna be a lot of negotiations going on. So we need to have these things resolved, or, we've had government shutdowns in the past. If they can't come to an agreement on this, the government's gonna shut down again, and it's gonna be very difficult to get the government going unless we can resolve these very basic questions. So this is you know, the thing with the tariffs is a serious, serious problem to America going forward. And what's gonna be happening on the budget bill
Mhm.
is creates huge dangers for us. And although there's so much going on, I know I didn't do a great job, as good as I can explaining it, but most people in America don't know that that's going on, and don't know these issues. And it's gonna be determining our future,
Mhm.
you know? And what they know about Trump is a tough guy, he doesn't know about these policies. So, let me take a look. Other questions? That make it clear?
Yeah, Alan, I want
Alan.
Alan, go ahead, Ken has a question before me.
Before, at the time of the election, those who voted for Trump, the white race and those who were not white race, but they still voted from other nationalities, what were they expecting from him that he did not display, but he came with what he's given the country now? What were they expecting?
Here's what I think the American educational system has failed.
There it is.
I mean, the kind of things that we're talking about that are so basic to where our country is going is that most people, if you sat down and had a discussion with them, wouldn't have any idea what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Doesn't know the impact on them. So, I mean, part of it had to do with the fact that people were voting against Biden because he was too old and they figured he wasn't being effective. But the other thing is, people, when Trump said, I'm going to increase tariffs, people didn't know what that meant and what the effect of it was. It just sounds good. We're going to stand up for America against the world.
That's the deal. They package everything very well.
What?
They package every one of their plans very well.
Because, you know, my wife thinks Trump is an idiot. And I think he's brilliant because he knows how to talk to voters. What?
Voters.
Oh, Trump knows how to talk to voters.
Oh, yeah.
He knows, yeah, he's a liar.
He's a liar, he's brilliant. I guess he's a brilliant liar.
And, you know,
How do you gonna trust somebody?
so I remember when I was teaching down in Central Jail, the first time that Trump was running. And there was a young man there, he was just a pretty smart guy, and he was telling me why he liked Trump, all the things Trump was gonna do. And I said, you know, Trump's not gonna be able to do those things. And he said, yeah, but he's thinking of us. You know, so that was when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton. And in terms of packaging, the Democrats have done a terrible job.
Yeah.
You know, a terrible job. Listen, I sympathize with people who are gay, and I don't want them discriminated.
Mhm.
But people saw the Democrats as being more concerned about bathrooms for trans people than they were concerned about poor people.
Economy.
And so, somebody said that all you have to do to live in West Virginia, where all the mining is go to West Virginia and say something good about coal mines. Well, Trump went down and said, we're gonna increase.
We're gonna open up the coal mines again.
Yeah, we're gonna increase coal. They weren't gonna do it because of a lot of economic reasons. We weren't gonna be able to use coal. And Hillary Clinton never went to West Virginia.
Mhm.
And her one quote is that she called people who supported Trump deplorable.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of decent people. I mean, Brad, you know, came in here as a voted for Trump. He's a decent person. He's not a deplorable. And so, what?
I'm gonna say this, let me say this. It doesn't matter, okay, because first of all, Hillary Clinton got the most popular vote.
Yeah,
Okay, when people have money, and the campaign financing laws the way they are, both of those elections were stolen and bought. When money enters the game, you cannot trust on votes. It should be, you say it's on votes, but it's not on votes. It's whoever pays for the election. And when you let that kind of money into it, don't expect that you're gonna have a fair election.
Here's my view. Hillary Clinton did not lose because she didn't have enough money. Hillary Clinton's not concerned with all the money in the world. But there were things about her, and in terms of the framing of these things, the Republicans were much better at framing the issue.
And they were much better at lying and cheating too.
I disagree with both of you slightly, because one of the things that's important for people to understand when it comes to these elections is perspective. See, truth is truth all day, every day, but whose truth are we talking about? So Hillary Clinton's truth, she was delivering it to the people that she needed to vote for her, who didn't want to hear her version of the truth. Whereas the Republicans, they are constantly, even though we might consider them lies, they are constantly spewing out information that for many people is the truth, because they believe it. Even though it's not founded on any intelligible reasons, they can still talk to the for example, I think that Blacks and Mexicans are using way too much welfare right now, where white people use more welfare than their Black people in this country. But because they package it so well, they make it seem like it is a Black and brown problem. So I'm going to vote against that,
I
right?
don't think you and I disagree.
Right.
What do you disagree about what I'm saying?
No, what I'm saying is, because it's not that they're lying, okay? And it's not that Hillary Clinton had said anything wrong. It's just, who are you talking to? I think that Hillary Clinton should have modified her conversation for the audience she had. Instead of standing on principle, which I appreciate, by the way, but instead of standing on principle, she needed to understand that the environments that she was, the areas or the populations that she was talking to was not in the realm of fiction that she was talking about. Everything that she said was a truth, but it wasn't the truth that they believe in their hearts, in their cores. And until you make that connection with the voting population, they are not going to vote for you. So every time she got up there and she said, no, we're not going to open up the coal mines. It's bad for you. You shouldn't say, she didn't go to West Virginia, but giving you an example, don't go to West Virginia and say that we're not going to open up the coal mines, even though that is the truth, right? Whereas every one of the coal miners believe that eventually the coal mines are going to open again. So the Republicans said, yeah, sure, we're going to open them up for you.
And Hillary's problem was that she was more honest.
She was more honest, but honesty does not sell in politics. It's perspective that sells. And as long as you are feeding the red meat to the people who believe something to their core, even though it's foundless, that's how you get them to vote for you. That's why the Republican Party continues to win, because they continue to talk to the uneducated population who believes in facts rather than understands and takes the responsibility to learn the facts.
Do you think, to my point, do you think that Hillary would have won if she had more money?
It had nothing to do with money. It was total. It was totally the conversation. You know.
I mean, that's my feeling.
Right.
And you know, it's about the presentation, and Kamala Harris could have had all the money in the world, and she wasn't doing it.
But there's so many factors, right? You have a rapist felon, white boy, versus the most educated and the most qualified human being to ever run for office.
No question. She was black.
But she was Black, and she was a woman. And you have the entire Bible Belt, evangelicals, who are predominantly women, white women, by the way, who are completely against a woman being in charge of anything. And they're the ones that use DEI the most, by the way.
No.
Amazing.
So that's why, Jennifer, I think that, I don't think that Trump stole the election. I think he did a better job running the election
Well, I think he did that too. I think he did a better job of it. He could market and brands his name and all that. But he still didn't get the most votes, okay? And they still.
And that's because of the electoral college.
That's right.
Well, who's-
Well, this one,
And
they-
still end up, the person with the money is gonna be.
Okay, let me kind of, and we can take a break.
Let me give you one example. So Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles. Ran against Rick Caruso.
Right.
You know who spent more money in that
Right.
campaign? He spent $100 million.
$100 million.
She spent $13 million.
Yep.
And he lost.
Right, she has.
He was a converted Republican too.
But she has a history and she has a name, but by the time they finish raking her over the coals, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but my point is,
I like
is that
money.
he vastly overspent her. Spent way more money and it didn't
But
help.
see, you're talking about spending more money in a legitimate way in campaigning. I'm talking about going in the back door and stealing the election and buying the votes and the machines. I'm saying when they want to win, the person with the money is gonna, when they're gonna do that, that's how much they want.
Yeah, I'd like for us to take a commercial break. We have Miss Dale here, who is the vice president of the 116th Street Block Club, in which we were blessed enough to host a meeting with him and with our councilman the other night. And because of that, we have become benefactors. And Mel, share with us what you're doing tonight.
And then-
Pleasant good evening, everybody. I'm Dale Trent, Vice President of
Can I
the,
just one thing? Because I also told you that Tony would be talking about insurance.
Oh, she's gonna be in 2 minutes.
Okay,
That's
whatever.
fine, yeah.
Take your time.
No, we can't do that because we gotta hear from Tony. She's gonna take a couple of minutes to just share with you.
Just
Right.
a few minutes, just 2 minutes of your time. These are items that were donated by Councilman Tim McCosker to our block club, which I distributed yesterday, 42. And I have 8 left, and because Pastor was so kind enough to open up his sanctuary to host our meeting, he wants to build the bridge between the church and the community, start working and producing in the community. And I thought it would be nice enough to donate the whatever I have left to the rest of you, which it seems that we have exactly 8 people here today, but 8 that so you are now recipients of our
Air
contribution of air purifiers.
Oh, excellent.
The only thing I would like is if I could get everybody's name, address, and signatures, so got to the councilman's office, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, up.
Okay, we'll pass it around.
And for the record, there's only one president since I've been alive, and one Republican president that's won the popular vote since I've been alive. I've been alive for 54 years. Ronald Reagan is the only Republican president to win the popular vote. Every Republican president since I've been alive has lost. So to Jennifer's point, yes, the electoral college is garbage. And there's another thing I want to talk about. How many senators do we have? I'm very political. Y'all probably figured out. How many senators do
You
we
said
have?
100.
100. Now, which 2 senators have the most power? The 2 senators in California or the 2 senators in Montana? Why do you think so? Why do you think
It's
so?
a trick question.
It is a trick question. Why do you think so?
I thought because of the population.
It does have to do with population, right? So the reason why I asked that question is because the senator in Montana, if you look at how many constituents that they have, it's not a whole lot of work that they need to do, right? So that one vote has a lot of power because they don't use the Senate vote for population. It's per state, right? And because it's per state, you have a situation where the senators who have the less number of people, meaning they have more power with their votes. And because most of the decisions that are made in this country have to do with the land that's involved with this country, the 2 senators in Montana have the most power. So that's why that needs to be adjusted. And then again, and you already know this, the Electoral College is as obsolete as it can possibly be, right? But they're not, the reason why they will not get rid of the Electoral College, because the Republican Party will never win another election without the Electoral College. That is a statistical fact. Yes, and I would really love for them to get rid of that. So that was my little oration, real quick. Did you want me to start now, or do you want me to?
Yeah. And everyone knows, this discussion of what's going on with the budget is gonna be continuing, and we're gonna be talking about it next week. And there'll have been changes made, and you'll know what they are, because you're gonna be following the news. And then we'll talk about it next week.
Well, my discussion, I appreciate you letting me share this, because this has been on my mind for a while. Alan wanted me to talk to everybody about the importance of life insurance, and as a strategist, it's very important for me to talk about it, and I don't see where my glasses went. So, I do a lot of presentations. I do them in various colleges, veterans organizations, churches, as well as online. The presentations are usually pretty lengthy, so I wanted to be able to be more direct today. So I gave all of you this little cheat sheet.
All right, thank you.
My bad. Let me get one for you. And I didn't realize how small the print was until I tried to read it myself. Right?
Pastor, this is the extra, he doesn't really sign it, doesn't really sign it, God, he can pass
Okay.
it out to
I'll make sure I sign.
somebody else.
Okay.
I see somebody else is coming in, but I have to.
And you'll be able to continue your discussion
Oh,
next week.
no problem. Oh, that's another reason why I have this. So I do believe in people having something to take with them. And I'll sign that real quick before I get started. Yeah. Because I understand the importance of making sure your constituents get their stuff.
I don't know.
Mayor, this one is you?
Yeah.
Can you put your name, please? Oh, just put your 2 months, okay.
All right, just a short pause. Want to make sure she takes care of standing on business, right?
Yeah. We get Mrs. or Mr. McLean, who just walked in. Would you like a free air purifier? All right, okay, we'll have Mrs. McLean sign.
There it is. Okay, and I'll sign it shortly. So, this conversation that Mr. Pick, Alan, was discussing today, I wanted to be able to piggyback off of that. So we got a chance to talk about the federal government, municipalities and their budgets and their spending. But I want to talk to you about your personal budget. I want to talk about your spending and how life insurance affects that. And the reason why life insurance is so important, oh man, I like that hat. Make sure you leave that right there. Yeah, that's really, really good. So the reason why life insurance is important. There we go. Are you good? I think I need to give you one of these too. So you can.
And his lovely wife.
The Lord is my shepherd. Okay. He got a whole Bible on his shirt. Is your name King James? Yes, I am corny. Don't hold it against me. So again, Mr. Pick, he wants me to come back and finish this stuff, but I don't want to give you a whole bunch of what life insurance is, any other uses or anything. We're not going to go like he says. We're not going to go into the weeds of that. But instead, I want you to understand why it's so important, right? So if you look at this little cheat sheet, I gave you a couple of slides. It's hard to read. I apologize because I was able to read it and then realized, wait a minute, I can't read it anymore. That's because I was looking at it on a computer and it was much bigger then. But to be able to help you understand and take some of this information with you, I really want you to appreciate why life insurance is important. So we live in a country where, for lack of a better term, we're not really that taken care of. Now, a lot of people talk about how much longer we're living, right? And this is true, we're living longer, but anybody know why we're living longer? Is it because we're eating better?
No.
It's definitely not because we're eating better. Is it because our lives are getting safer? No, not at all. It's because of what? Maybe pharmaceuticals are keeping us around a little bit longer?
Possibility.
It's a good chance of that. I'm with it. Not at all. Let me see. I'm just full name, my government name, which you want? Right? All right.
Okay, my most humble apologies for disturbing your meeting.
You didn't disturb our
Thank you
meeting.
so
Thank
very
you.
much.
God bless you.
Enjoy it here.
So she brought all these air purifiers in here. I say we turn them all on and see if they work, and then call her back and say, that doesn't work, bring us some more. I ain't mad at you. So, again, we live in a country where it seems like we're living better and we're more healthy, but it's absolutely not the truth. Because of pharmaceuticals and various forces that are working against us, you have a situation where we as a nation are really unhealthy. And that lack of health has contributing factors. You have socioeconomic factors, how much money you make, where you live, where you work, who you live with. Your mental health is affecting your physical health as well. So all these factors can create stress, which creates inflammation, which causes a whole history of host of other problems in your body. And because of that, as you get older, if you're not taking care of yourself, what ends up happening is a finely tuned machine that you might have been when you were 16, by the time you're 36, you're starting to wear down way before your time. And people don't realize what they're doing. I call it simple disciplines versus simple errors in judgment. So give you an idea of what I'm talking about with that. Eat an apple instead of a donut. If you only had one donut a week for 52 weeks per year, you're fine, really, no big deal. But if you had one donut every day for 365 days for 20 years, sooner or later, you're gonna start looking like that donut. And even though it's a very simple, sorry, but even though it's a very simple thing, if you do it consistently, that simple error in judgment will affect your tomorrow. And what's happening in this country is the tomorrows are constantly being affected by the way that we eat, by the way that we do things, by the way that we work, who we love, how we love, economic situations. All these factors affect our health. And whenever your health is affected, whether it be mental or physical, your financial situation is also affected. So what ends up happening is you have a situation where a lot of people, they are working. And I like to talk about women in particular, because women, if any of you know me, I'm very social justice. I'm saying that online, by the way, I am. And the reason why that is because I desperately want to stop the school to prison pipeline, desperately. Most of our children, black and brown children, are constantly being ushered into the prison system, creating a prison complex that you see, manifesting every day, which is really strange why they're so against immigration, because the people that are causing this take advantage of immigration the most. But what ends up happening is the women that we have, as they continue to learn more and they continue to do more, they are making more money, they're becoming more educated, but they're still in the same situation when it comes to who they are taking care of. They're the ones taking care of our children, and they're also the ones taking care of their parents. So what ends up happening is each of these women, because they're doing so much for so many people, the money that they would normally be able to put aside ends up not being able to go to their retirement, and they end up being the very person that they were taking care of 20 years prior. And you understand that women, they usually become widows somewhere around age 59, right? And they usually live much longer than the males. So if they're living much longer than the males, and they're taking care of the kids, and they're taking care of their parents, who's gonna take care of them if they're not able to put money aside? That's why life insurance is so important. So on this cheat sheet that we're looking at, I have here current threats. So everybody know what the three-legged stool is, right? What is it? Social Security, is it one of them? That's currently being threatened right now. You have your retirement program, savings, your pensions or whatever, all that's being threatened. So you have a situation where the Social Security has $1.354 trillion that they're looking at cutting, right? That's a lot of money. Alan talked about the Medicare, Medicaid being cut. You're looking at $848 trillion. I'm sorry, I put trillion, it's supposed to be billion right now, right? But this is an awful lot of money that they're talking about cutting to programs that we actually need. Alan talked about inflation. So what's been happening right now is a lot of people say you are 62, 63, 64, 65, right? What are you thinking about doing when you're in your mid-60s?
Retired.
Retiring. But before you retire, if you have a pension, did you have a plan for your retirement, or a planned year for your retirement? Okay, now inflation just went up 10%. What's going to happen with your retirement?
It's going to be badly impacted.
It's going to be.
It's not going to keep pace
It's
with
not
the
gonna
cost
keep
of
pace.
living.
Exactly. But in addition to that, if inflation is going up, that means your money is not going to last as long as it did before. And the money that you have in that employment annuity, right? What's happening with the growth of that money? It's being challenged. So instead of it growing at a particular rate, now that rate is being decreased. How do you protect yourself from that? Life insurance can help you hedge yourself against that, right? So there's a couple of things I want to show you. This is kind of poignant for me, right? So on this sheet, you see the financial pyramid, right? Now, what is the first thing that the financial pyramid talks about? First thing, protection, right? This is the foundation focusing on safeguarding assets through insurance and emergency funds. So back about 4 years ago, what happened in the United States? What do we have?
The pandemic?
The pandemic happened. And how many people suffered during the pandemic because they didn't have an emergency fund there? Right? There was so much money that was being transferred, handed back and forth in this country during that time, but you would never know it because we weren't the benefactors of that money. And you understand, just like energy, it cannot be destroyed. Money cannot be destroyed, right? So even though you're not getting it, someone's getting it. Even when the market is down, someone's getting paid. Even when your money is not going as far as it was before, someone's getting paid, but not you. So when they start cutting programs like Social Security, Medicare, your income is threatened. They take away my veterans benefits. Your health insurance gets messed up, right? That starts to affect a lot of people financially. And if you are planning on retiring at 65 and you're 63 and the market crashes like it did before, you're going to have to recalibrate your retirement. And that's what's happening to a lot of people. And guess what happens to a lot of people when they get stressed out about money? And one point that you've already heard, right? People are more afraid of running out of money than they are of dying. That is a fact. Okay? And the reason why that is a concern is because they don't want their lifestyle to change after they retire. And there's a good chance that your lifestyle is going to change because you don't have the money to fund it. And then you have a situation where those simple errors in judgment that you did 20 years ago, now they start to catch up to you. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, my mother, she passed in 2023, end-stage renal failure. That's kidney disease, kidney failure, right? Now, my mother loved her. She spent a lot of time making sure, anybody know what Virginia Slims are?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she had her share of those, right? And she did some other errors and judgments that affected her kidneys. But the number one thing that affected her kidneys, and I'm sorry to tell you, especially this crowd, is if this country is not healthy for any particular reason, it's because even though the food's bad, but I really believe that the number one problem that we have in this country when it comes to our health is pharmaceuticals. That is a fact to me. And the reason why I say that is because the medication that you take, you actually have to take medication for the side effects of the medication that you're taking. Now, what I try to get people to understand is everything that goes through your mouth goes through your kidneys. Everything that goes through your mouth goes through your kidneys. So I would go to see my mother, and I would see this litany of different pills that she's taking. Now, meanwhile, while she's taking these pills to make sure the nitroglycerin for her heart, the metformin for diabetes, and some cancer drug that she was taking. Now, that doesn't mean all these different drugs are working together in concert. In fact, they're actually doing the opposite. So because it's going in your body and it's not working properly, what's ends up happening is your organs start to fail. And her kidneys, she had 3 heart attacks, 3 strokes, she had cancer. And all of that could have been avoided just by a simple dietary change. But that change needed to happen much earlier than it did, rather than happening so much later, right? And now, because it didn't happen early, the pharmaceuticals are what's keeping her alive. But the reality is, those pharmaceuticals are also what's aging her. Those pharmaceuticals are also what's destroying her organs until she finally answered God's call. So life insurance, why is that such a big deal? You have a situation, I'm gonna talk to you about another one of my cousins. She got sick one day. She thought it was just a regular flu. So she goes to the doctor and she's in there and the doctor says, hey, you know what? We're gonna have to keep you for a couple of days to take some additional tests. After they got done with the additional tests, they told her that she had 4th stage lymphoma. And they gave her 6 months to live. She was gone in 2 weeks. Now, the problem that I have with that is if you are taking regular visits to the doctor, they could have caught that much sooner. But because she didn't have the economic strength to regularly go to the doctor, she couldn't afford the health insurance even after the Affordable Care Act. She wasn't getting those regular treatments, and then she ended up getting caught, and she ended up, her life ended up expiring because she wasn't able to take care of herself, her health, right? And the people who are able to take care of their health, if you look at where it says chronic illness here, if you can't do 2 out of your 6 activities of daily living, that's considered a chronic illness, right? And if you have a chronic illness, chances are you can't work. So let me ask you a question. If you have a chronic illness and you cannot work, and you have an hourly job, or you're the primary or the sole proprietor of a business, how are you gonna bring in money? And if you can't bring in money, how are you gonna pay for your expenses, your gas, your lights, and everything else? You can't pay for that. And even if you have health insurance, you still can't cover the cost of your mortgage or your rent. You can't cover your cell phone, your gas, your lights, your car insurance, and all that other stuff. Health insurance doesn't cover that. And you can see the statistic that I showed here, where 80% of the bankruptcies came from people who had medical insurance, but the medical insurance did not cover their normal everyday expenses. So Alan was talking about the federal government's expenses and where they get additional monies from, right? Well, if your expenses are tied into your lifestyle, and your lifestyle is tied into the income that you're making, and your income is threatened by the current threats that we have to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, your VA benefits, and your health insurance, now you have less money to work with, but you still have the same expenses. And if you're not willing to make some modifications to your budget, you're going to end up being in a situation where you are what? You have a foreclosure of your house, potentially having to move or downsize. You might have to start having more and more people moving into the house. Now, what is that going to do? That's going to create even more stress, which is going to cause even more health problems, because now you got your trifling family members, right? And I love my family over there, right? But when they move into the house, now you have a new set of responsibilities. Now you have to learn how to work together in an economy that's not really working for you. So I said all that to say this. You have African Americans own 56% of African Americans own life insurance. Did y'all know that?
No.
They do. Who owns the most life insurance in this country per capita?
African American?
Black people. Proud of that, right? I'm gonna let you be proud of that for about 5 more seconds.
It's not adequate.
Okay.
They're underinsured.
Say that again.
They don't have adequate insurance. They have insurance, but not adequate.
That's exactly right. What type of life insurance do Black people get?
Term.
Yes, but there's another thing that's more specific. What is the mortality rate for African Americans or Black Americans in this country? Because African Americans can also be white people. But what is the mortality rate for Black people in this country? It's pretty high, right? So most of the time we're getting what are called final expense policies. And by the time we get educated on life insurance, we get what's called pre-need insurance because we're too old to get a life insurance policy, right? Now, here are the economics of life insurance that you're gonna love. If you were to get educated on life insurance when you were younger, the cost of the life insurance would be significantly lower. You would have a higher death benefit, and the death benefit after you answer God's call could be used to fund the next generation's success, rather than them having to restart the wheel or reinvent the wheel every generation. Right? So when you have a situation where the life insurance, you say you have $500,000 of life insurance, how am I doing on time? 15 minutes. Say you have about $500,000 in coverage on life insurance, right? And you have a trust that is the beneficiary of your life insurance policy. God calls you home. You have that trust set up to where people can borrow money against that trust. Now they can start businesses, go to college, have money to go to houses, to buy houses, and they don't have to worry about being turned down at some bank because you created the bank for your family. That's why life insurance is powerful, right? So in this next 5, 6, 7 years, yes, Mr. Pastor.
In your opinion, when would be the best time to insure an individual?
Birth.
Okay.
Birth. And it's a great question because people don't understand it. Some of the common questions that I get, how many, can you have more than one life insurance policy? I hope to God you do. When can I get it? As soon as they're born. Some companies, you have to wait for 2 years until the child is 2. Some companies, the child has to be 6 months. And the reason why it's 6 months is because of the infant death syndrome. And that usually affects who?
Us.
Black, right? But the second that child is born, you need to already be planning on getting something set up. Because here's the deal. You could have $100 going into a cash value life insurance policy and have that stretched out for 65 years for that child. That child will retire a millionaire even if they've never worked a day in their lives, because of the compounding interest that you get from cash value life insurance. And cash value life insurance exceeds, on average, whatever the inflation rate is, right? So all of you have heard of whole life insurance, right? That's a guaranteed return, somewhere between 3.5 and 5.5%, right? That 3.5 and 5.5% exceeds the average inflation rate that started all the way back in 1913, which is manufactured, by the way. Does anybody know what the average inflation rate is?
It's about 3%.
3.2. What is your savings account getting?
2% if you're lucky, I
So
guess.
so the money is on average getting bigger every year, right? So we have a situation where you have 40–50% of the population is unbanked. You have a situation where our women are in a sandwich situation where they're taking care of the kids and their parents. You have a situation where the population is uneducated. You have a situation where the population is unhealthy. Life insurance can protect you from all of that. So when I say why this is important, if you can certain people, I won't say who, but certain people sit down at the dinner table and they have these conversations. And a simple conversation, comfortable it is, can make the difference between you leaving your family a legacy versus leaving your family standing in the middle of the street trying to collecting money for your funeral. And right now, I gave you another statistic. Note, a GoFundMe campaign begins every 18 seconds. Every 18 seconds. How many times, how often do we have heart attacks in this country? Anybody know? 7 seconds. 7 seconds. So every 18 seconds, we're getting a GoFundMe. So what does that mean? For every 2 heart attacks, almost 3 heart attacks, only 1 person's prepared. And let me go ahead and beat your head up with this one. So if you look at the long-term care costs, if your medical insurance is not taking care of you, you don't have a family member to take care of you, then you're going to have to go into some kind of a facility to take care of you. Does anybody know how much that costs?
Too much.
Check your cheat sheet. So down in the bottom corner, there are monthly costs of staying at home of $8,000. $8,000 and you're at your house that might already be paid off. But if you end up living in a care facility, it could be more than that, right? I've seen it as much as $20,000 a month, right? Now I'm going to ask you a question. You might have a 457 plan, a pension, right? You might have been a police officer, worked at Kaiser, and said they should have stock in Kaiser. You might have been working there for 40 years. How long will your retirement survive if you have to pay $20,000 a month for somebody to take care of you?
Shoot, 4 years.
4 years, right?
Yeah.
I might get that 18 seconds that I was talking about for the GoFundMe, right? So you have a situation where it's dire. But here's something that's pretty interesting, right? You have a situation where 3% of homeowners have insurance.
Whoa.
3%. You have a situation where 18% have insurance, of car owners have insurance, right? But 72% of the population need it. Long-term care insurance. 72% of the population needs long-term care insurance, but everyone spends all their money on car insurance, household insurance, they got rental insurance, they even have insurance on their cell phones, but they don't have insurance on themselves. Does that make sense? And that is why you have such a serious financial situation in our economy, because let me go ahead and go with the politics. I normally don't want to do this, that's why I always want to do this. Right, so you have a situation where if we had more economic power, we could put people with some courage in office that will be able to mandate new laws that will protect the people rather than serving the people who don't need it. Right? You'll be able to send people to office that will be able to make sure people like our current president cannot do the things that he's openly able to do, and it's not even hiding. He's not hiding any of it. Right? That's because we have no economic power. And then I'm gonna go back to another thing. I might not want every family member living in the house, but let me throw this at you. If you are paying $3,000 rent over here, your son is paying $3,000 rent over there, your daughter's paying $3,000 rent over there, your sister's paying $3,000 rent over there, that's $12,000, and you got 20 acres of land that no one's living on. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. You can actually build houses on that 20 acres of land, have your entire family move in there, have that $12,000 going into your family, and using that additional money that you have to fund policies that'll make sure you have a legacy for your family long after you turn into dust. But that's not the conversation that we're having. So I can tell you what life insurance can be used for. I can tell you all the different types of life insurance. But unless you understand why, you will not appreciate the importance of it. That's why so many people look at life insurance as a bill. But there's three things that's probably the most important three things that you could ever think about, especially sitting in a church. There's God's love, death, and taxes. That's a fact. Guess what? Of those three things, two of them you have to pay for. What two are they? I want to see on that. What two things you have to pay for? God's love, death, and taxes. Which two things you got to pay for?
Death and taxes.
Yeah, because God's love is free. And God's love is also good enough to help you understand why it's important that you make sure you hedge your assets against those death and taxes. Well, Tony, how come I got to pay when I die? You got income tax, you got sales tax, you got all kind of taxes, but what's that final tax that you got to pay for? It's called estate tax. If you got responsibilities before you leave this world, that money is going to have to be deducted from something. Life insurance can protect you from that. If you are a married person and you have a pension, is a pension taxed yet? No. So when you get ready to cash out your pension or your retirement plan, it's going to be taxed. If you planned your retirement on the full amount, you're going to be underfunded for your retirement. Life insurance can protect you from that. If you have a situation where you have an IRA and you convert that over to a Roth, that can help you be protected when your spouse expires, because now that additional source of income ends up being taxed as a single person rather than a married person, which is going to jump your taxes up. And we've already discussed that taxes are going to be going up primarily for the middle class and the lower class, 4% if you're making over $100,000 a year. Life insurance will protect you from that. So what I'm hoping to be able to do over the next, whenever Alan talks to me, is I want to be able to show you different strategies. Many of you probably,
It'll be next week.
next week. So many of you probably already know certain strategies, but one of the conversations I want you to have with people is when you go to talk to other people, help them understand why this is important. Because you can talk to that young person who can afford an $1,800 cell phone, $800 shoes, but if they lose their job, they're coming back to move in with you. That's a fact, right? So there's the last thing I wanted to cover before I get out of here. Let me see, where did I put this? Okay, we already talked about insufficient coverage, but there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about real quick. Oh, there we go. All right, so leading causes of illness and death in the United States. Does anybody know? don't know what that is, but over the past 70 years, heart disease, cancer, chronic lower respiratory diseases, COPD, COVID, various diseases, Alzheimer's disease. All of these get very expensive the older that you get. So the last point I want to make to you is, think about your mom and your father. Did they have anything before they expired? What did they expire from? If your mother and your father expired from any particular type of illness, that makes you at risk for that illness. You want to protect yourself from that, because here's something that's important for you to understand. Everybody in this room has kids. Do you want your kids to dedicate the rest of their lives to taking care of you, or do you want to make sure you take care of yourself? Because your kids should be able to live their lives. Life insurance can make sure your children can live their lives, and you have the economic power to take care of yourself, even if you have to hire someone else to do it. Right? So I'm hoping in the next week or so, we can really break this down and help you understand the different types of life insurance, help you share this information with other people so they can understand the importance of it, because life insurance is not a bill, it's a responsibility. There are two expenses that you have to pay for other than taxes. That is your rent or your mortgage, and that's your life insurance. Because the reason why I say that is, if you can't afford life insurance right now, and something happens to you, you can't afford not to have it. That's the conversation that you need to have with people, because that's what's going to protect you. My mother, when she expired, man, that was rough. She gave me complete instructions on what she wanted. She paid for everything. Everything. From the time she was taken out of her house, right? And she wanted to be cremated, so I had her cremated, right? And every instruction she had came with a cost. And every one of those costs, she took care of it with her life insurance. She took the responsibility to plan her expiration so no one would be burdened with that. That is the best gift that you can give your kids, so they don't have to be burdened with the cost of you answering the Lord's call. So with that, I'm gonna open up for any questions. And
Now, you want to put your phone number or something, or?
sure.
If they want to get a hold of you in the meeting.
Everybody in here already has it.
Do you have that?
Yeah. And if you don't have it,
Does everyone have it?
I'm a nerd. I put that little QR code down here at the bottom. Yeah, so anybody have a question? Yes. We'd like that hat.
At my age, whenever I get anything about life insurance, and I start figuring it out, the amount of money that I have to pay for life insurance, I think I should probably do better by investing it in something.
I would agree. Okay, so, and it's hot here, so please excuse the sweat. But I would agree with that. But I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, if you look at this financial pyramid right here, the one that's to the right. Okay, you want your investments to be after you have the protection. So if you don't currently have any protections in place, then we need to figure out exactly what you need to be doing with your money. So you say you want to invest. What would be the reasoning for your investment? What do you want to do? Grow your money or have money for your retirement?
Well, money for my retirement, I work for the city.
Okay,
So that's constant.
got it?
Yeah.
So when you retire from the city, they're going to give you a pension, correct?
Right.
Are they going to give you a lump sum, or do you have a lump sum of money?
No.
Okay, so you're going to be living off of payments.
So Tony,
Yes.
we're very punctual. It's
Yes. It is 7:30, so I'll go ahead and close out,
Why don't you
but
go ahead?
I'll get you my information, and then we can have the discussion in length. All right, so I'll ask Pastor Bowie to come up here and close us out in prayer.
First, I want to thank you, Tony.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of information, so that's why I want you to have this cheat sheet, so you'll be able to follow up on this in the future, but I'm a decrease in that. Pastor Bowie has.
Hold on, I think.
Can we access this sheet online?
Say again?
Can we access the cheat sheet online?
Yeah, if you want, I can just send it to you, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, you can make it bigger so you can see it. My bad.
No, I just want to forward it to the
Okay.
people.
You want me to sit?
Yeah, you stay. Yeah, make me look
I
good.
want you to.
Well, it's all of our show here, right? It's not just a Pastor Bowie show. That's the beauty of this class, what each and every one of us, we bring our own knowledge. There's some things that you know, as Alan has already told us, all of us in Congress. There are things that you know. Tony has shared some things tonight that I didn't know. So, I mean, that's the beauty. Alan, in his teaching, there was so much that I didn't know. So, one, I want to thank each and every one of you who come. I encourage you to come and invite others. This class here will change your life for the better if you understand. And let me say, even if you know, are you giving this to your children, your grandchildren? Because you know, for most of us, if you haven't gotten insurance right now, you're pretty late on the boat. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. But as Tony said, we should be insuring our children at birth. All right, one, you have longer for it to accumulate. Two, what happens, it's a lot cheaper to insure you. You get more money for less. You know, so. All right, let me pray. Our gracious and loving God, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. Thank you for the teaching of Alan, the teaching of Tony, and the contributions of each and every individual in the class. Lord, I pray that you continue to bless us, continue to increase those who would attend, and increase our knowledge so we can, Lord, make better economic decisions, not only for our future, but Lord, we should be looking beyond our future for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Now bless us as we prepare to go home and leave this place. Give us traveling grace and traveling mercy. And bring us back. And let us bring some friends next week. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice presentation.
Oh, it was a little broken
Let me
up.
have another sheet if you have one.
Yeah,
Yeah, for those who need help.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
No, my pleasure. It's a little small, so I'll make it a little bit bigger next time I come.
My dad worked with Golden State Mutual Life Insurance for 33 years.
You
Oh,
need
that's good,
help
man.
carrying
I grew up in
your
a family. with-
purifier to the top, let me know.
Let me stop this, and then I'm good to go.
Well, it's pretty.
Well done, sir.
Oh, I was totally broke.